Kenny Povey here again with Gardening Simplified, and today I'm going to talk about uh, transplanting tomatoes. Now, I'm not talking about transplanting them out into the ground. It's February 29th, and I've grown my tomatoes from seed, and we'll go through the process of transplanting them into bigger containers. Okay, we're going to talk about transplanting tomatoes. Now, these are the tomato seeds I planted on the 14th. It's now the 29th of February, and you can see they've all got their true leaves on it. A lot of them's got more than one in a spot. This particular one here, this is kind of an unknown. It was a gift when I bought some other seeds, and I'm going to plant it. I think it might be like a purple tomato or chocolate or something. But I figured I'd plant them, but I planted them all in one hole in here, so they're all together, which that's no problem as far as planting them that way. You're just gentle, and you slowly work the roots loose, and then you can plant them all separate. But what I'm doing is I'm not transplanting them to the garden. I'm transplanting them to a bigger container. My mix is peat moss and perlite. You can get you a good grade peat moss. Don't just get the cheap stuff. Get something that's nice and fine. A lot of the less expensive, bigger peat moss, it's bigger chunks. It's not as fine, and it doesn't make as good a seed starter. Now, you could use seed starter if you want. Don't worry about any fertilizer. These haven't been fertilized. Of course, the seed starter has a little bit. These have been grown under a grow light out in my shop floor, as you can see in an earlier video. It tends to make them to where they're not leggy because it's nice and cool, even though they've got bright light and it's regulated on a timer. They have good, healthy stems. They're not leggy like a lot of others. I tried doing it where it was warm last year just to experiment on planting seeds, and I was actually fertilizing too, and I had a whole bunch of leggy plants. They weren't good, healthy plants. These are more hardened on the stems already because the nighttime temperatures, a lot of times it falls into the upper 40s in my workshop. Perlite, this is Miracle-Gro. Now, perlite has enough nutrients in it to feed the plants. I think there's a little bit of extra fertilizer in this. Of course, you're not real selective as far as what you can get, so you have to use what you can get. But perlite has a lot of nutrients for the plants, and like I say, you don't have to worry about doing any extra fertilizing. But I'm going to go ahead and transplant these. I've already transplanted some others. Now this was some old peat moss, same type, but it's old, so it's kind of dried out. I should have probably moistened it up. This is a fresh bag, and like you can see, it's a lot darker because it has moisture. It takes a lot of time for it to soak up water. Now, this is setting in a pan, and there's water in the bottom of it, so I'll continue to leave this set in water until it actually gets completely soaked in. But you can see on the top how the water's beating because it just won't soak in very fast. So if you have dry peat moss, I recommend you go ahead and put it in a bucket, put some water in there and stir it around, and you can get that water worked into it. Okay, now I have them separated and planted. Make sure that you push your, well, I'm not going to say soil, but your peat moss mix down around them so that it's firm. You don't have to worry the seeds aren't sprouting. You want the roots to be in there solid. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can do this as far as watering. Now I see this cute little watering buckets and stuff like that, because whenever you water these from the top, you don't want to water the leaves. Now the easiest way to do, I just take an old windshield washer fluid can, and I got a small hose, and on the end of this hose I have a bolt fastened to it, and I just drop it down in that water and then just prime the line. Now you could take this hose and you see it's nice even flow. It's not going to get on the leaves, and you can water around all your plants and do this way with it, and you don't have the big expense of buying some little specialized tool that you're not going to use very often. But now I like to water them in from the top. When it's moist, I can do that. When it's dry like the other one, it just doesn't. Now what I'll do is I'm going to water these down from the top. Now I'm going to take my jug, and I'm just going to pour about a ½ inch of water in the bottom of this tray. Now I have trays that don't have holes in them, so I can do this. Of course, if you have holes, you're going to have a problem with it leaking. But I just pour about a ½ inch of water in there, and I'm going to leave these set until they've soaked it up and they're good and moist. And then I'm going to continue with the rest of my tomatoes here. Always make sure you mark them. Now these are the ones, like I say, these were a gift with some others, so they're unknown. I just mark them that way, and I'll find out what they are, and if I like them, I'll save seeds for next year. If not, well, we'll just let them go by the wayside. Okay, when I'm planting these, or I'm separating them, let's say I separate some of these, because most of the sales, I put 3 seeds in, and these are some celebrities, which is basically a determinant, but it continues to produce afterwards throughout the season. But this year I'm planting determinants. I've got some early girl bush, which is a determinant, and these celebrities. But when I take these apart, I separate them and keep the roots on, and then all you've got to do is take this plant and push it down into the pot. Now I'll make sure the soil's tight around it. Now when I have one that just a single seed came up, now I'll just clean out a hole and I'll just plant it by itself. Now I've got way more than I'm going to end up needing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, once I get my bigger pots finished with what I need, I'm going to take and clip off the extra, so I just have one per cell. And then if I decide I want to go ahead and plant these, I'll go ahead with it and see how they do. I'm sure they'll be root bound. And when I'm planting these too, now I'm not normally you take off the first leaves when you plant these, but I'm not bothering doing anything that might stress these plants when I'm transplanting. I'm just going to put them in here. I'm going to transplant them. Now once I get ready to put them into the ground, I normally, especially depending on how tall this plant is, I'll take off leaves and I'll bury it up to the top leaves. But like I say, I'm not going to consider that when I'm transplanting them into bigger pots. Now that I have them pushed down into place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fill these cells up the rest of the way with peat moss and my peat moss mix, and that way they're covered up to the top of the leaves. But what I'm doing is basically I'm planting these down just below the first leaves. I hope this video was helpful to you. If you'd like to see more of these, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you'll be notified anytime I have a new one come out. I'll give you the progress report on these here probably in a couple of weeks or so. It's not going to be long. It's going to be time to go ahead and put them in the ground. So just consider when you're planting your seeds. Either you need to start them in a big container. I like starting them in the smaller one, so I can actually put them deeper into the container and let them grow a little while longer, because everywhere there's hair fibers on the side of the stem, that's where roots are it's going to start shooting roots out all along that stem, and it gives it a lot healthier root base once you put it into the ground. So just remember that, and especially if you can't get the seeds you need, this is one of the ways that you can do it, and it's really easy. Like I say, growing your own. Just stick to the method.